The day I discovered they'd literally cut me out of every family photo was the day I stopped trying to earn their love. But it was also the day I decided to show them exactly what they'd thrown away. My name is Marcus, and for 28 years, I was the family disappointment, the black sheep. The one who chose art over accounting, dreams over stability, passion over their precious reputation. While my brother Christopher Brennan became a surgeon, and my sister Natalie married into old money, I was struggling to make ends meet as a graphic designer, living in a cramped studio apartment that smelled like instant noodles and broken dreams. Every family gathering was the same torture. Mom would purse her lips when she saw my secondhand clothes. Dad would launch into his speech about wasted potential. Christopher would casually mention his latest surgical breakthrough, while Natalie flashed her new jewelry. And me? I'd sit there, invisible, counting down the minutes until I could escape back to my little world where my work actually mattered to someone. The breaking point came at Thanksgiving 3 years ago. I just lost my job at a small design firm that went under. I was behind on rent, surviving on ramen and hope, when Dad decided to make his annual toast. He raised his glass, his voice booming with pride as he spoke about Christopher's promotion to head of cardiology, about Natalie's husband's new investment firm, about the family legacy of success and achievement. And then, nothing. He sat down without mentioning me at all, not even a polite nod in my direction. I left early that night, making up some excuse about a project deadline. The truth was, I couldn't breathe in that house anymore. Their disappointment was suffocating, a weight that pressed down on my chest until I thought I might collapse. For months after that, I threw myself into my work. I took on freelance projects for pennies, designed logos for food trucks, and album covers for bands that played in garages. I lived on 4 hours of sleep and pure determination. Something inside me had snapped that Thanksgiving night, not into despair, but into fierce, burning ambition. I started developing my own style, mixing traditional techniques with digital innovation. My work caught the eye of a startup founder at a coffee shop where I was sketching. One conversation led to a contract. That contract led to another. Within 6 months, I had more work than I could handle. But I didn't tell my family. Part of me wanted to surprise them, to walk into the next holiday dinner as a success story. Another part, the hurt, angry part, wanted them to discover it on their own, to realize what they'd been too blind to see. The calls from home became less frequent. Mom stopped asking when I'd get a real job. Dad stopped offering to set me up with interviews at his golf buddy's accounting firm. Even my siblings seemed to forget I existed, their texts dwindling from weekly to monthly to nothing at all. I told myself I didn't care. I was building something real, something that mattered. My client list grew. Tech companies started seeking me out for their branding. My minimalist meets bold approach was suddenly everywhere, on billboards, in magazines, across social media campaigns that went viral. The money started flowing in, first a trickle, then a stream, then a flood. I moved out of the studio apartment into a loft with floor-to-ceiling windows. I bought a car that didn't require a prayer to start. I hired assistants, then built a team, then founded my own agency. Still, I kept it all quiet. Social media wasn't my thing, and I worked under my company name, not my personal brand. My family had no idea that the Marcus they'd written off was the same M. Brennan whose designs were winning international awards. 2 years passed without a word from any of them. No birthday calls, no holiday invitations, no casual check-ins. It hurt more than I wanted to admit. Late at night, after everyone had gone home from the office, I'd sometimes pull up old family photos on my phone. We looked happy once, before I became the failure, before they decided I wasn't worth their time. The silence was broken by a call from my cousin Garrett. He was getting married, a big society wedding that my Aunt Patricia had been planning for 2 years. The invitation, he mentioned awkwardly, had been sent to my old address. Did I want him to send another? I said yes, though we both knew it was a courtesy invite. The black sheep showing up at the country club? My aunt would have a stroke. But something made me want to go. to see them all again. Maybe to prove something. Maybe just to torture myself. The wedding was everything you'd expect from my family. Crystal chandeliers, a string quartet, enough flowers to stock a botanical garden. I wore my best suit, Italian, custom-tailored, worth more than my father's car, and tried to blend into the background. That's when I overheard Aunt Patricia talking to my mother near the gift table. They didn't see me behind the elaborate floral arrangement. Patricia was gushing about the family photo wall she'd created for the reception. Generations of Brennan's success stories, she called it. Photos of Christopher in his surgical scrubs, Natalie's wedding portrait, my grandparents, my parents, cousins who'd made partner at law firms and open medical practices. My mother sighed, and I heard her say the words that shattered something inside me. Oh, we had to handle the Marcus situation. Patricia's voice dropped to a whisper. You mean? My mother's response was matter of fact, like she was discussing lawn maintenance. We cut him out, literally, from all the photos. It was easier than explaining why one child didn't amount to anything. I stood there, frozen, as Patricia murmured her sympathy. Such a shame, she said, but you have to protect the family image. I left without saying goodbye, without confronting them, without making a scene. I just walked out, got in my car, and drove until the tears stopped blurring my vision. That night, I made a decision. They wanted to erase me. Fine. But I was going to make myself impossible to ignore. I researched my parents' neighborhood obsessively. The perfect house on the perfect street where they'd lived for 30 years. Where they hosted their dinner parties and held court as the successful Brennans with their successful children. Across the street, there was an old Victorian that had been converted to apartments. The owner had been trying to sell for months. More importantly, it had a massive wall facing my parents' house. A wall visible from every front window, from the driveway, from the manicured garden where my mother held her book club meetings. I bought the building. The seller couldn't believe his luck. Cash offer, well above asking, no contingencies. The deal closed in 3 weeks. I hired a construction crew to install the largest LED billboard the city would allow. The permits alone cost a fortune, but money wasn't an issue anymore. While construction was underway, I had my team create the perfect design. My face, professional headshot, confident smile, alongside my company logo. Below it, in letters large enough to read from space, Brennan Design, when success speaks louder than words. But that wasn't enough. I wanted them to know exactly what they'd thrown away. So I added a rotating display of achievements. Forbes 30 Under 30. Winner, International Design Excellence Award. Featured in Time, the future of digital art. The billboard went live on a Tuesday morning. I sat in my car across the street, watching as my father stepped out to get the newspaper. He froze on the doorstep, his face cycling through confusion, recognition, and then something I'd never seen before. Fear. My mother joined him, her hand flying to her mouth. They stood there in their matching bathrobes, staring up at their failure of a son looming over their perfect life. The call started within minutes. My phone exploded with messages from numbers I hadn't seen in years. Christopher, Natalie, aunts and uncles who'd forgotten I existed. I let them all go to voicemail. The first message was from my mother, her voice shaking. Marcus, this is inappropriate. Take it down immediately. We need to talk about this like adults. Christopher tried the disappointed older brother angle. Really immature, bro. Mom's having a panic attack. Is this what success looks like to you? Natalie went for guilt. The neighbors are asking questions. You're embarrassing the entire family. Haven't you punished us enough by being absent? But it was my father's message that made me laugh. Actually laugh out loud in my empty car. Son, he said, and the words sounded foreign in his mouth. Let's discuss this. I'm sure we can work out some arrangement. perhaps it's time we caught up properly." I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I programmed the billboard to shine brighter at night, added animations, included a QR code that led to my company's portfolio, a portfolio filled with brands they used every day, never knowing their disappointment of a son was behind them. The neighborhood HOA tried to intervene. City officials were called, lawyers were consulted, but I'd done everything by the book. The building was mine, the permits were valid, the billboard stayed. Within days, it became local news. Family feud goes digital. Son's billboard revenge. The story went viral. Reporters called asking for interviews. My inbox flooded with messages from people sharing their own stories of family rejection, of being cut out, metaphorically and literally. My business exploded. Turns out, nothing sells like a good underdog story. Clients loved the billboard stunt, saw it as brilliant marketing. The agency doubled in size within 6 months. I opened offices in New York, Los Angeles, London. The billboard stayed up. My family tried everything. They sent relatives I barely knew to negotiate. They offered to pay me to take it down. Christopher even showed up at my office once, trying to strong-arm me with talk of family honor and letting go of grudges. I had security escort him out. A year later, I got a letter from my mother, handwritten, which surprised me. She wasn't one for sentimental gestures. She wrote about seeing my face every morning, about how the neighbors whispered, about how she couldn't host her book club anymore because everyone just stared at the billboard. She said she was sorry, not for cutting me out, but for how things had turned out. She still didn't get it. The billboard wasn't about revenge, not really. It was about existence, about refusing to be erased, about claiming space in a world that tried to make me invisible. 2 years after the billboard went up, I expanded it, added a second screen that cycled through my team's faces, the brilliant misfits and dreamers who'd helped build something extraordinary, people who'd been told they weren't enough, just like me. My parents put their house on the market last month. The realtor's sign looked tiny beneath my glowing face. They're moving to a gated community 3 towns over, where the HOA has strict rules about commercial displays. I'm buying their house. Not to live in, I've got my own life now in a penthouse that overlooks the city I'm helping to redesign, but because I want to turn it into something useful. Maybe a creative space for young artists. Maybe a startup incubator for kids whose parents don't believe in their dreams. The billboard will stay up, a reminder that cutting someone out of your photos doesn't cut them out of existence, that success isn't measured by medical degrees, or trust funds, or country club memberships. Sometimes it's measured in lumens, blazing through the night, impossible to ignore. They wanted to erase me from their perfect family portrait. Instead, I became the view they couldn't escape, and somewhere in the space between their shame and my success, I found something better than their approval. I found myself. The emails still come occasionally. Relatives wondering if I'll ever let it go, if I'll ever forgive, but they're asking the wrong questions. The question isn't whether I'll forgive them for cutting me out. It's whether they'll forgive themselves for throwing away someone who refused to disappear. The billboard glows on, rain or shine, a beacon for everyone who's ever been told they're not enough. And every morning, when the sun rises over my hometown, my face is the first thing that greets the day, exactly where it belongs.